So everybody, WWE Clash in Paris finished up earlier on today, and I was actually able to watch the entire show, and I took some notes down as to what I thought about the show as a whole. So we're going to get started from the very beginning, work our way to the very end, before I give a total show summary. So for the TLDR, I think it was a very entertaining one. There were a lot of big names, so it was, easier for the casual fans to understand, but also there was a lot of story for those more like deeply invested people to understand. And I think it was really well balanced. I don't think there were any matches on the show that were particularly like bad. I think the closest was probably Becky and Nikki Bella, but that's just kind of a given. Nikki's getting older. There were a few messes in the match. It's kind of what happens, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We're going to get started with the opening match of this show, which was Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed in a singles match. This match was entertaining when it wasn't slow. Because this match, very fun, very like big spot, kick out, big spot, kick out. A very prototypical Roman match when it was in his like, oh, is he going to retain his title kind of era. But it wasn't the whole match. This match is 22 minutes and 7 seconds long. If this match was 14 minutes long, it's probably the best match on the show, to be perfectly honest. There are a lot of really good, like, entertaining spots. Roman gets his absolute block knocked off by the end. I'll get to that in a minute. It's a great match. But there's, like, 6 to 8 minutes of, like, unnecessary or, like, really boring spots that aren't needed. Now, given, you need your time to, like, get your guys to rest, and that's, a given. So, like, a nice little 2-minute break of, like, kind of, laid back, relaxed moves. Okay, you need that. But that was like the whole middle part of this match. Like they went full throttle, really slowed down, and then went back to full throttle. And like sometimes that works. It really didn't for this match. It was still good, and I think the end kind of like washed that out of my head, and I would still give this match a very good rating. But in that like dry period, it was just kind of tame to get through. It was very like repetitive, very bland is how I'm going to phrase it. And then after the fact, we saw Braun Breaker come out, help Bronson Reed like completely demolish Reigns, write him off TV. He's filming another movie, I think. So this makes sense. I'm not surprised. But Roman did end up getting the win after those 22 minutes with his prototypical finisher spamming session. So what are you going to get from a Roman match against a, unfortunately, lower to mid card talent in Bronson Reed, even in whatever their faction's called. But c'est la vie. Bronson Reed should get more wins, if I'm being honest. We move on to the second match of the show, which was a WWE Tag Team title match, which is the Wyatt Six against the Street Profits. This match went about 13 minutes long and really filled those 13 minutes. I think this was a very, very entertaining match. This one was definitely not as slow as the prior match. Again, it was like 10 minutes shorter. You can't really be that much slower. But there were a lot of very fun spots. The Street Profits are kind of token for that. There were some like, I don't want to say silly or like comedy spots, but like very Wyatt Six, like, oh, look at the dastardly Wyatt Six doing it again. Like there's a moment where Montez is trying to get in the ring and Nikki Cross like lunges out from under the ring and is able to like snatch him. And that's funny and a little goofy. And then Uncle Howdy hit a Sister Abigail. Fully brain farted on what that was called. But overall, it was a very entertaining match. I enjoyed this one. I think the Wyatt Six retaining is the right move. It was getting the tag titles on a PLE again. That's probably the most important part of it all, other than putting the Wyatt Six over again, because they need to be put over more than they are, because they weren't for like their first year of existing, and now they finally are. So wonderful. We move on to the Women's Intercontinental title match between Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella. This match also went about 13 minutes. This one did not fill its 13 minutes as well. I will say that off rip. It was fun, and it had its moments, but there's a sequence at the end that gets very messy, and that's unfortunate because it's the ending sequence of the match. And what should happen, I think, if I remember it correctly, Nikki goes up for like a top rope, jump off the rope, kick Becky, Becky's in like the middle of the ring. Nikki just completely misses. And then kind of like falls over into Becky, who does something which ends up with Becky pinning Nikki like that way for the 3. But it was a very both abrupt and bland finish. Like I expected like a reversal manhandle slam. Oh, she did it. She did it. And I know she's a heel, so maybe with some like nefariousness in there. But it was just kind of like, oh, it's over now. Like there wasn't really any build up to it. Like in a match, right? I don't have a marker. How do I have a whiteboard, but I don't actually have a marker? But you know how in a match, like I'm gonna use this magnet, right? If this is the start of the match, it has like its ebbs and flows, right? Where it goes like low intensity, oh, big high intensity moment, cools it down a little bit, oh, big high intensity moment, and then like, oh, climax, finish of the match, right? That's how most matches normally go. And every now and then you have an outlier that ends like here because there's like a roll up or something. This match goes kind of like this. Over. That's just how the match goes. Like we start middle, we go up, and we go back down to like mediocre. We have a small bout, go back down, stop. Match is over. It's a very abrupt finish. It was really like confusing because I wasn't like glued to my TV watching it, but I was watching, kind of like flipping back and forth because I was looking at that, and then we were working on like dinner, I think at the time, something that we were doing, and so I'm doing this, and then ding, ding, ding. Oh, what happened? And then I watched the replay and I saw it, and I was like, oh, well, ooh, what a fun match ending. Anyways, we went on to the good old fashioned Donnybrook between Rusev and Sheamus. Easily the best match on this show. This is a car wreck of a match that is not just a car wreck. You know how like some people who don't like Darby Allin will say, oh, Darby Allin matches have no story. They're just chaos. This match is that, but like entertaining. Because Sheamus goes through like a wooden drawer or like a mantelpiece, and like they go off of, I think, yeah, there's this giant stack of barrels and white noise off the giant stack of barrels. Somehow that hurts Sheamus more than it hurts Rusev, because when they get back in the ring, Rusev's like stumbling around and Sheamus is just out on the canvas. It was really odd after the fact, but in the moment, it was a very good spot. And then Sheamus ends up tapping out to like I don't remember what Rusev's submission is called. The Accolade. The Accolade assisted by the Shillelagh, like yanking back. Like Sheamus has, rather than the like clutch position, it's to the point where it's like pulling back on his mouth. It's amazing. Overall, not a lot I can say here. It is just a very chaotic, fun match between the two of them, and match of the night, personally. We move on to Logan Paul versus John Cena in one of John Cena's gazillion final match in X location ever series. This was another fun one. It wasn't particularly like, how do I phrase? It wasn't super like high speed, like awesome, all out, but Cena threw some cool stuff out, like that wasn't usual John Cena mantra stuff. And obviously he hit the generic like, you can't see me, boom, hey, shoulder tackle, etc., etc. But he did like a spinning DDT, which was fun, and then he did a couple drop kicks in there. It's a little less Cena-y, especially at his age. And I think the match was fun without being over necessarily complicated, which I think provided it to be better than it could have been, and if it could have been just lame. Now, Cage Match, which is what I use to grade a lot of my shows, does not seem to agree with me very much on this, because a lot of the top comments are not fans, but I don't know. So I'm gonna read this comment by HV85106, who says the following quote: I mean, the match quality was fine. Nothing too bad or good, and the right person won. But what is up with the OPSEC of booking like this? You've got a legend who's on his retirement tour going 50-50 with a YouTuber, going 26 minutes? This has always been way more than Logan has deserved to get, in my opinion. In another timeline, he would have been punked out in a few minutes flat. But because we got to capitalize on money and viral moments, he gets unrealistically strong booking all the time, including here. Cena on his worst day should have been able to put this guy away in like 5 minutes. There you go. I think that was a pretty consensus agreement on this. I think this match was a big move thing. And again, there's another comment right here by Poser, which says just what that is. Quote, just because you do big moves and have lots of kickouts with a hot crowd, that doesn't make this a good match. Like, people are giving this a 10, an effing 10. There was no flow to this. The moves weren't crisp. In fact, they were quite sloppy. They're replaying a botched pop-up uppercut. Like, what are we doing here? Felt like Cena and Logan were just trying stuff. End of days, zigzag, styles clash. F it, sure, whatever. Why though? What's the point of all that besides the crowd getting to do the annoying 2-count chant? Despite it being a complaint for over a decade, Cena's spot calling has gotten worse to the point where commentary is forced to mention it and come up with an explanation. I hope Cena extends his retirement toward a Mania, as it is the only way to give him any kind of proper send-off. I think this is a very nihilistic look on this match of oh, because the big moves weren't the story that was necessary, it was a bad match. Now, yes, it's Cena's retirement tour, and Cena means a lot to people. So having him have story-focused, important matches that get him what he deserves is the goal. But throwing a match with Logan Paul to give Logan some limelight, and yeah, the dude's not great, but it's gonna get it's gonna get WWE some money. It's gonna do for them what they want, and Logan Paul, the kids like him. I feel old saying that. The kids, the youngins like Logan Paul, but it's a situation where it's beneficial for the company, it's beneficial for Paul, and as much as it is it's not story enough, why did they choose to do this? There were good spots in this match. Cena pulling out a Styles Clash was nice, give AJ some respect. Unfortunately, he couldn't be on the show. And just giving Cena some flowers, giving him a lot of big moves you don't see often. I was mentioning that earlier, and I think that worked. I don't think that this match was bad, like a lot of people are saying, but I wouldn't necessarily give it the 7.7 average out of 10 that it has here on Cage Match. Then in the main event match, we had Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus LA Knight versus Jey Uso for the WWE World Heavyweight title in a fatal 4-way match. This match was tame. I feel like it was a little tamer than it should have been, and it came to a point where LA Knight and Jey Uso were not there to be there. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. That's the only reason they were there. They were only there to be there. They weren't there to, get pops. They weren't there for chance at winning. They weren't there to build tension, because in the last 5 to 6 minutes of this match, Seth Rollins, I think Jey Uso distracts LA Knight, causing LA Knight to go flying through a table, which kind of knocks him out. And then something happens to Jey Uso on the other side of the ring. And then it's just Punk in the middle. Seth's about to go attack Punk. But then he sees that the other two are in stomp position. So he goes and stomps the other two and takes them out for the entire rest of the match. And I understand that you're still trying to further the Seth Punk storyline. But the Seth Punk storyline has been going on for so long. And I get it. You can have long-term rivals. And I get it that Seth and Punk are older guys. So it's not like you can say, oh, they're going to have, a rivalry in, this year. And then 3 years from now, we can be like, oh, we can kind of bring this back. Because, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, obviously had classics in the 90s. And then they had classics in the late 2000s, early 2010s. There's nothing wrong with that. That's, a very good way to do that. There's a pretty solid length of time. And it's not to say they didn't wrestle in between those two periods. They had a few matches here and there. But they were able to keep it going. They were able to be, original with it. But Punk and Rollins just seems like it's the same story. I don't like Seth Rollins because he's too cool and I never got my shot. CM Punk's annoying and he doesn't like me, so I don't like him back. And it's the exact same thing every single time. And Don't get me wrong. The end of this match was good, and the match as a whole wasn't bad either. But it was just for like a pay-per-view main event. I don't know. Like this is like a pay-per-view opener or like a good Raw main event, like a very good Raw main event. But like a pay-per-view main event, and like Becky being the last member of the group or the next member, it could be more, is like okay, like I guess it works, but there's so many better options that you could have done. You could have done Dragunov. You could have done Ethan Page. You could have done Ricky Starks or Saints, whatever. You could have done like a gajillion people, and you went with Becky. And like, oh, it's Seth Rollins' wife. That makes sense. True. This is true. But it doesn't give credit or an opportunity to younger stars, which is I think the purpose of this faction. So probably should do that. Just saying. And even if you needed it to be a female, bring in like, I don't know, Kiana James. And I know Roxanne Perez is like with the Judgment Day, but someone like Roxanne Perez, but like slightly less proven. Like one of the dance girls, but I think they both got released. They would have been great. And now as a heel, I don't know. But someone with their vibes, their energy, their like, I don't want to say talent level, but their 2K overall. Someone who has their overall on 2K. That's the kind of person you should have brought in, not Becky, personally. But as I said, I think this show was entertaining and it was fun. Cage Match gives it a 7.8 rounded. I would probably agree with that. I would give it around that. I'd give it maybe let me think. I enjoyed 3 of the matches. 2 of them were okay, and 1 of them wasn't great. So give it like a 7.5, 7.6. I think that's fair. Because the Donnybrook was really good, but the Becky match and the main event kind of under delivering kind of brings it down for me. If those 2 matches didn't under deliver, this would easily be a good like 8.1, 8.2. But those do drag it down to a 7.5, 7.6 region. So that's my take on it. Do you guys have a take? I'm sorry this video came out late. I had stuff I was doing. As I said, let me know in the comments below if you have any opinions on the show. Do you think that the Becky match was the best match? The Donnybrook was terrible. I really do want to hear your opinions. Maybe I'll do a reaction video to some of your comments someday. I actually find it very fun to read them and see what my viewers like to think. So, as I said, make sure you have a good day, good evening, good night, good morning, good dawn, good desk, good whatever. Make sure to watch any former or future videos on this channel. And goodbye.